It's time for Orchard Skills. CodeFlow is the most advanced and secure flow in OAuth OpenID Connect. It is the most flexible that allows a web client to obtain tokens securely. It is split into two major parts. The authorization flow, where the client application redirects to the server, the user logs in, the server then redirects back to the client application after the authorization process. And the token flow, which is a REST API call from the client application to the authorization token endpoint on the server. Today on Orchard Skills, we'll be continuing to utilize the OpenID Connect CodeFlow authorization in Orchard Core. Again, we'll use this flow to obtain secure access to the Orchard Core content APIs. In previous videos, we created React, Angular, Vue.js client applications. This time, we'll be creating a Blazor WebAssembly client application with CRUD operations. Create, read, update, and delete on our custom-defined subscriber content type in the Orchard Core content management system. Please stay with us, and we'll get started. Welcome back. As you can see, by just describing our objective, OAuth OpenID Connect can be a bit intimidating, but by learning the basic terminology and seeing some examples, you can eventually master it. In order to utilize the OpenID Connect server, we'll need to configure it in Orchard Core. I believe the fastest way to accomplish this task is through a recipe. Let's take advantage of the material design theme solution we created in a previous video. With your favorite browser, let's go to github.com/orchardskills/orchardskills.orchardcore.materialDesignTheme. Click on the code button and let's go ahead and select Open with GitHub Desktop and also the button Open GitHub Desktop.exe, and let's hit the clone button. Okay, great. Let's bring up Visual Studio. Okay, let's head over to the material design recipe here. So the first thing we want to add is the GraphQL feature. And next, what we'll want to add is enable the OpenID server, OpenID management, and OpenID verification features. And now let's head down to the end of the file here. And here we want to add the configuration for the OpenID Connect. Add that here. So we want to specify OpenID server settings and test mode enable false, access token format, JSON web token. Authority is the location of our server, which is localhost 44307. Enable token endpoint true, enable authorization endpoint true, enable logout endpoint true, enable user info endpoint true, allow password flow false, allow client credential flow false, allow authorization code flow true, allow refresh token flow false, allow implicit flow false, allow logout endpoint true, and then we'll specify our authorization endpoint path to be our server/connect/authorize, and our logout endpoint path as our localhost connect/logout, and our token endpoint path as connect/token, our user info endpoint path as /connect/user info. And then we want to set up our authorization code flow, and we'll name it OpenID application. Client ID will say code flow client ID. Redirect URLs will be localhost sign in -callback. And also for the post logout redirect, we want to specify localhost sign out callback. And then we want to allow authorization code flow to true, allow logout endpoint to true, and then type public. And then for our scope, which is OpenID scope, put our description, a scope to provide API for remote clients, display name, API scope, scope name, API resources, my recipient, and then down here, name, OpenID validation settings, audience, my recipient, and then the authority is our server, localhost 44307. And that's it. That's all you have to do to configure your OpenID Connect settings in Orchard Core. Let's bring up Visual Studio and load the material design theme solution. Right click on the solution and let's add new project. And let's select the Blazor application. Hit next. Let's call this orchardskills.orchardcore.client app and hit create. Select a Blazor WebAssembly application and let's change the authorization to individual. Hit OK. And then we can also select a progressive web app and let's hit create. Okay. Let's go to the pages folder here and let's right click and add new Razor component. Specify claims.razor and hit add. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and rename this here, the fetch data.razor, and let's rename this to CRUD. CRUD. Okay, so let's go back to our claims.razor here. Specify page/claims. Then we'll put an authorization view, and inside the authorization view we'll have an authorized, and then we'll say hello, the user name, here's your list of claims, and then we'll do a for each claim in contacts user.claims, and this will list out all of our claims. And if the user is not authorized, we'll display a message, I'm sorry, I can't display any claims until you log in. So now let's go to the program.cs here. And let's modify a few things here. Let's go ahead and replace this builder.service.app and replace it with our own client. So we'll do builder.services.add HTTP client, add HTTP message handler, and then we'll say get service authorized message, and we'll configure handler. Authorized URLs is HTTPS localhost 44342, and our scopes will be OpenID, profile, and API, and then we'll return the handler. And then inside here, let's change this here, and we'll do builder.services.add OIDC authentication, and then we'll specify OIDC. Bind this, and this OIDC is a configuration. So let's go to our www root folder, open there, and then you'll see here there's an app settings.json file, and that file corresponds to the settings. So let's go ahead and change this. And we'll specify OIDC, and authority will be HTTPS localhost 44342. Client ID will be CodeFlow client ID. Use Pixie, true. Default scopes API. Metadata address will be localhost 44342. Well-known OpenID configuration. Redirect URI is localhost 44310. Authentication/login-callback. Post logout redirect URI is localhost 44310. Authentication/logout-callback, and then our response type will be code for CodeFlow. Then here we'll also need to add a package reference to the Microsoft extension.http. We also want to add another package here, Blazor toast notifications. Let's head down here to program.cs, and you'll notice that all our warnings and errors gone away. And let's go to our nav menu here, add a claims here after home, and instead of fetch data, do CRUD, and then we'll specify CRUD here. Okay. Now for our CRUD.razor page, we'll specify page/CRUD, and then we'll do a usings on our Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Components WebAssembly, HTTP, and also the authentication. And then we'll do a using on our System.NET HTTP headers, and also HTTP.NET HTTP.json, and also a System.text.json. And then we'll inject the HTTP client. We'll also inject the navigation manager, also inject the iAccess token provider, and also inject the iToast service for our toast notifications. Okay, then here we'll specify a Blazor toast for our toast notifications, and inside here is we'll do an authorization view, and authorized context is auth, and then we'll do an edit form so we can do our CRUD operations. So we have subscriber form, and then we have a table to specify first name, last name, edit, and then our action. And so this will give us a list of all of our subscribers with our action for edit and delete subscriber. And then if we're editing, this will be for a modification. If editing or and subscriber edit, then we'll display this row and specify a bind to the first name, last name, and email for our update. And then if a person is not authorized, then we'll display the message, I'm sorry, I can't display CRUD operations until you log in. And then down in the code section here, We define our access token as we get a new token here. We have our HTTP request message and our response message, and then we have a method for our GraphQL. An update will be a post, the delete will be a delete, and then we have our URI GraphQL, which is API/GraphQL, our URI for our content, which is API content, and then we have our response status code GraphQL and our HTTP response body, and then basically we create our form of a new subscriber. We set a boolean of editing false, and then we define subscriber to edit, and then an API GraphQL, which is the structure of the query when we get a list of all the subscribers. And so this is where we're setting up the data structure for the GraphQL. So we have data, and then inside there we have a list of subscribers, and then we have create UTC, display text, email, first name, last name, modified UTC, publish UTC, and finally the content item ID. And then when we do an oninitialize, we go ahead and get a list of subscribers. And then we have a function called getToken, and so basically we make sure that the token is not expired, so we set a variable to now, which is the time date offset of UTC now, and then we have expires is equal to the access token buyers property, and then we say if expires is less than now, then we go ahead and generate a new token. Then we have a task for get subscribers where we get the token, and then we set up our HTTP request for our GraphQL, and we set up our headers. So we set up our bearer token, and then we send the request, and then basically we read the string back from the response message, and then we deserialize it into this API GraphQL structure. And then if there's an exception, then we go ahead and set the status code in the body. We go ahead and set the error message and stack trace. And then on open edit subscriber, we set editing to true, and then we set the subscriber to edit. And then on the close edit, we have editing to false, and then we set the subscriber to edit to null. And then update subscriber, we go ahead and get the token. This is the body that we set up for the subscriber. When we modify the subscriber attributes, then we tell the API of the structure. And then we set up our HTTP request. We set the method, the URI, and then the content to the body. And then we specify here the media type, which is a JSON, and then also our authentication for our bearer token. And then we do a send async, and then we basically get the response back and close our edit, and then we update our toast notification here. And down here for delete subscriber, we get the access token, set up our request, and then basically set up the bearer token, and then do a send async, which delete the subscriber, and then we do a toast notification. And then for add subscriber, we do get token, specify the attributes for the subscriber in the body. Then we do an HTTP request, set up the method, which will be a post, set the URI, and then set the content to the body. And then we set the media type to application JSON, set up the bearer token, and then we do send request, and then we basically set up our subscriber form, first name, last name, email to blank, and then send the notification. And that's it. Let's go ahead and run the application. But before we do that, let's do a right click and go to properties, and inside here we'll want to set it up for multiple startup project. We want to start the Blazor WebAssembly and also the Orchard Core CMS. So both the Orchard Core server will start and the Blazor WebAssembly client application. And let's go ahead and hit OK, and let's hit the start button. Select Orchard Skills, and let's select the material design theme and enter credentials and hit startup finish. And let's go ahead and log in and put sales or enter our credentials and go to our dashboard, and let's go to security and then OpenID Connect, manage application, and you can see that we have an authorization code flow. Let's go ahead and edit that, and for our client ID is code flow client ID. Our display name is authorization code flow. Our type is public client. And then we have our allow authorization code flow enabled. And also we have allow logout endpoint. And so our redirect URI is localhost authentication /logout -callback. And our post logout redirect URIs is localhost authentication logout-callback at port 44310. We have our content type is set to explicit consent. And if we go to our scopes, we have an API scope. If we edit that, inside there, our name is API, display name, API scope, description, a scope that provides API for remote clients, and our additional resources, API audiences, my recipient. We have our Blazor WebAssembly application, and let's go ahead and log in. So we click on the login button, and we get redirected back to the server. Let's go ahead and log in, enter our credentials, and then hit the login button. You'll notice that we get the notification, authorization. Do you want to grant authorization code flow access to your data? Scopes requested, OpenID, profile, and API. And let's go ahead and select yes. All right, so we now logged in. Notice up here it says hello sales, and let's go ahead and select the claims. We select the claims, and it says hello sales. Here's a list of your claims. OC setup type user, sub 31, OI auth JTL, AZP, which is code flow client ID, authorization token ID, and then also our name, which is our username, is sales. So let's go ahead over here and let's go back into our dashboard, go to our subscription section here, and let's create a subscriber. And let's create Donald Trump, first name Donald, last name Trump, and our email will be POTUS@us.gov. And let's go ahead and publish that. Let's go create another subscriber. So we'll create subscriber, and we'll say Joe Biden, Joe for first name, Biden for last name, and for email we'll say joe@biden.com. Publish that. And so now we have 2 subscribers. So now let's go into our CRUD operations, and you'll notice over here we have Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and add another one. Let's say first name Mike Pence, and we'll say Mike@pence.com. And let's go ahead and hit the add subscriber. And now you notice here we get a toast notification, a successful, and we have Mike Pence as a new subscriber. And let's go over here to the server and let's do a refresh. And then you can see here we have Mike Pence. So misspelled him, so let's go ahead and edit them and change. So you can see we can change that to a Mike and then do an update. And successfully updated here. And so let's go ahead and refresh over here, and you'll notice that that got updated to Mike. Great. So we did a list or a read, and we did a create where we created Mike Pence. We did an update because we misspelled his name, and we changed it to Mike. That worked. And the last thing here, we will do a delete. So let's do a delete. And we get a toast notification. You successfully deleted the subscriber. Let's go over to the server and refresh that. And now you notice that Mike Pence is gone. So now the last thing to do is just to log out. So let's go ahead and hit the log out button. And then we get redirected back to the server. It says, are you sure you want to log out? And we say yes. And now it says you are logged out. So let's go ahead and try to go into CRUD, and we get a message, I'm sorry, I can't display CRUD operations until you log in. And let's try to do our claims, and we get the same thing. I'm sorry, you can't display any claims until you are logged in. And there you go. Now to recap, we cloned the material design theme solution from a previous video, configured the server OpenID Connect for code flow authorization in the Orchard Core CMS application, created a Blazor WebAssembly client application using the OIDC client, and also configured it for client code flow authorization. Using the Blazor WebAssembly client to log in, we were redirected to the server. We selected yes to confirm authorization to get access to the Orchard Core APIs. Once logged in and authenticated, we were redirected back to the Blazor WebAssembly client application. The Blazor WebAssembly client application showed the authorized logged in status. We were able to perform CRUD, create, read, update, and delete operations on a custom content type subscriber. Now, if you missed or didn't understand something, that's okay. There's a detailed blog post that describes all the steps. There is also a GitHub repository with the complete source code. All this information is in the video description. If you like this video, please click on the thumbs up icon. Also, please subscribe and click on the bell icon to get a notification when I release the next video. Thank you for watching.